There's a power within you. It lifts your life to its highest level. It brings success, happiness, companionship, health, and peace of mind. As you tap into this power, it responds to you because this power is within you. And that's why spirituality rocks. Welcome. I'm your host, Janine Burns, and I teach practical spirituality. I hold my credentials as an interfaith chaplain with Emerson Theological Institute. And as such, what I do is I give workshops and I teach classes, and I teach people that there's a power within them. I teach them that as they change their thinking, they will change their life. We teach that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. We teach that we co-create with God, and that we can be free from lack and limitation, and we can choose a way of living that's joyful and powerful. And that's what we teach every week on Spirituality Rocks. So welcome to the show. And do I have an exciting episode for you this week? We have with us Janet Grace Nelson, who's an incredible truth teacher. This lady has more energy in her pinky finger than most people have in her whole body. And she'll be with us via phone, and she's out in Big Bear Lake in California. And on Skype today, we are taking a deeper look at Transforming Loss, which is the documentary by Judith Burdick. And we also have her companion workbook today, which we're going to be focusing on, which is fantastic. It is just excellent. I'm so pleased. And she's joining us via Skype from Detroit, Michigan. And in the studio, I have with me my co-host is Joyce Heist. Welcome to the Spirituality Rocks.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Joyce is a practitioner of New Thought, and she's actually in training to become a minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living.
That's right.
Excellent. So we have with us on the phone Janet Grace Nelson. For those of you who saw the show last time, you will remember Janet Grace Nelson, and that's her website, by the way, janetgracenelson.com, for the genius tidbit that she gave us, and I loved it. Welcome to the show, Janet Grace Nelson.
Thank you so much, Janine. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you, thank you.
I love having you on the show because I think all the women on the show today, my energy resonates with them, my enthusiasm, if you will. And what I liked about your interview on the show last time was you said particularly you invited everyone every morning when they woke up to think of 3 things for which they were grateful, and then focus on what the feeling was behind that. And I really like that because Neville Goddard teaches a lot. Neville was a very famous teacher in the 50s. He used to fill up the Welshire Theater in California. And he teaches that. And also in my Skype guest today, Judith Burdick, she talks about gratitude in her workbook too. Tell us more about this idea of gratitude.
Well, gratitude is synonymous with love. It's synonymous with abundance. You know, that we were all raised with most of us, I'm going to speak for myself, we were raised with the biblical saying, for those who have, even more is given. And for those who have not, even that which they have is taken away.
Right.
So the whole energy of gratitude is to just continuously live and swim in the ocean of I have all of my needs are met. All that I have, all that I need, I have already.
Fantastic. I love that. And that is what's so neat about that is I always say that feeling is the fuel that propels thought into manifestation. So if you have that mindset, then you are in fact in that energy of creation, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're, you know, as energetic beings, we are all vibrating at a certain level at all times. And so you want to really pay attention to where am I vibrating at right now? Am I vibrating at the highest level I can? And gratitude is way up on the Richter scale.
And that's interesting because that's something that you can do in a conscious state. Because Neville was, when I was reading Neville recently, he was talking that, you know, throughout the day, if there's something that, let's say, upsets us or we feel disconcerted by something or other, it's challenging with the ego to keep yourself centered in the positive when you're in the midst of a negative experience. So then what he encourages is meditation. He encourages, and our guest last week, Dennis Merritt Jones, he made a distinction between stillness and silence. And he talked about stilling the body as opposed to silence, which was going into meditation. And so Neville said that when you're in a state akin to sleep in the silence, that's when creative energies are really fully expressed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so what are your favorite techniques for when we find ourselves ensconced in negativity? What can you offer us as a suggestion? What can we do to change our consciousness, change our self-talk?
Oh, well, one of the things as I'm being with that question and the insight is coming through me to share, to believe in you, to believe in yourself, with a capital S.
Okay.
We are all creators. And so as we know that as a co-creator of the next moment, when we believe that we are one with the creative intelligence of the universe, that our options are infinite.
Nice.
And so as we release the idea, and I'm just going to read a couple sentences from the second chapter in my new book, Putting the Broken Pieces Back Together.
Okay.
It's all about believing in yourself. It's the 7 steps to living a courageous life. And when you believe in yourself, it's really a muscle. You're building a spiritual muscle. And just like building the muscles of the body, you're talking about stilling the body.
Okay.
So as we calm the nervous system down and we're stilling the body to be centered in truth, to be centered in God, the highest knowing of ourselves, we have this opportunity to really strengthen our belief in the truth of who we are. And so as you begin to build your muscle of believing in yourself,
Okay.
you become aware that you are more than your circumstances, your situations, your problems. You are one with pure spirit. You are one with the infinite nature of God. And as you embrace this knowing that you deeply connected to the preciousness of life, it is always conspiring for your good and for the highest good of all.
I love
and
that.
you actually start to feel more empowered like never before.
So what I heard you say is you strengthen and deepen your awareness of your connection, because we're always connected. So you strengthen and deepen your awareness, and I love that. All of the universe is conspiring for my good. That's a great affirmation.
Yeah.
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 As a matter of fact, I write jingles, spiritual jingles, so I might have to put that one to a jingle. I really like that. All of the universe is conspiring for my good, whether it's
great.
peace or joy or health or whatever it may be. That's fantastic. So tell us the name of your book again.
It is called Putting the Broken Pieces Back Together, a guide to building a life that's been shattered. And the subtitle is 7 Steps to Living a Courageous Life Now.
7 steps. Okay, tell us one step to living a courageous life. Just one
like
step.
Like I just said, believing in yourself.
With a capital S.
Pardon me?
With a capital S. So then you're talking about your authentic self, your divine nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I like that. Judith Burdick, in her book, Transforming Loss, she also talks about your authentic self as well. And I love that we use that as a reference to the power of God in us, through us, and as us. Authentic self, our real self. And, other techniques people use too are, they'll do affirmations throughout the day. What else, Joyce?
Oh, prayer.
Affirmative prayer,
reading spiritual material.
I love, one of my favorite things to do is to take a book and just open it up and say, okay, God, what do I need to know today? And just open it up, and invariably you open it up to a page and you receive spiritual food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Fantastic. So we can pick up your book on Amazon, or the people can go to janetgracenelson.com.
Yes, and actually the book is going to be launched on July 24th, actually in New York City. So it'll be available after that date.
Well, that is very, very exciting. All right, fantastic. And for a parting idea, could you tell us what you personally, what spiritual ideas that you have been focusing on, or what spiritual idea you've been honing recently, please?
Spiritual idea. I am deeply immersed right now in the honor that I have of facilitating my 10th annual Goddess Retreat up here in Big Bear Lake, California. And so it has been all about the practices and the processes of self-discovery, self-expression, and self-love.
Sounds
So
wonderful.
one of the self-loving practices that I have been participating very consciously in just over the course of the last 30 days is really immersing myself in nature and feeling my oneness with all of life. So feeling my oneness. I'm a certified tree hugger. So just being so connected to the beautiful energy of the trees and the four-legged animals that we're so grateful to have in our life, and all of the vegetation and the flowers, and so it's a practice that conscious practice of oneness has been a very powerful practice just recently that I've really been engaging in.
Well, that's wonderful. I know that people who go to your Goddess Retreats have that opportunity to be immersed in that energy and that consciousness. Well, that's fantastic. We look forward to seeing you in New York City in July. We bless you, we praise you, and we thank you so much. Janet Grace Nelson, who you can check out at janetgracenelson.com. Thank you for being on Spirituality Rocks.
Thank you so much. Blessings.
Blessings to you. Wow, what do you think?
Oh, I think that's great. And I identify so much with her being in nature and feeling that oneness.
Yeah. Well, I know you're a swimmer.
I'm a swimmer and I feel one with the water, but when I take my walks and I'm out looking at nature and listening to the birds.
Yeah.
And
Well, you know what I love? I'm sure Judith will agree. There were several things that we heard Janet speak about that are in this book,
Right.
Transforming Loss, a companion guide and workbook to the documentary that Judith Burdick created called Transforming Loss, and even that idea about getting out in nature to nourish your spirit. So don't go far, because we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes with Judith Burdick on Spirituality Rocks.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully, joyfully, I am divine.
My name is Dr. Robert Brevard. I'm here for Multi-Medicine in Westbury, New York. We're located at 1065 Old Country Road, Suite 214. Been here for about 15 years. The practice has medical doctors, physical therapists, chiropractors, acupuncturists. We also do pain management, and we have orthopedists on staff. Here at Advanced Multi-Medicine Rehabilitation, we've got physical therapists on staff who treat an array of conditions, from neck pain to back pain, shoulder pain. We treat carpal tunnel. We treat a lot of car accident patients, slip and falls. We treat patients with knee injuries, with ankle injuries. We have state-of-the-art equipment. We've been here for over 15 years. Vast array of diagnostic testing, from x-rays to EMGs. What is an EMG? It's a diagnostic test that allows a doctor to determine where the pinched nerve is. Cora is a physical therapist at Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation. She's working on Stephanie, who was involved recently in an automobile accident. Stephanie has tight thoracic and cervical musculature, and Cora is doing some myofascial release work and some therapeutic stretching, doing it to help her with her pain. Vicky is also a patient here at Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation. Vicky is now working her leg muscles, specifically her quadricep muscles, trying to strengthen them after an injury she sustained. If you find yourself in need of any type of physical therapy, please don't hesitate to call Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation, located in Westbury, New York, in Suite 214. Phone number is 516-334-7000, or find us on our website at advancedmultimedicine.com.
I am Tom Mealy for the Harrison Law Group, and I have been telling you for years that getting involved in an automobile accident is no joke. This is what we do. We're not new at this game. If you've been involved in an accident of any kind and you go to a law firm that says you have no case, it's simple. It's because they can't do it and they don't get it. You need to call us directly at 1-800-INJURY-LAW.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I'm your host, Janine Burns, delighted to be teaching you practical spirituality by being here every week with the most fantastic people who are committed to excellence, people who are committed to your personal growth and spiritual development. And what I'd like you to know is that we have these fantastic affirmation cards that we can offer to you. And all you need to do is send us a self-addressed stamped envelope, and we are happy to send them to you. And what they do is encourage you to strengthen and deepen your awareness, as our guest, Janet Grace Nelson, just spoke about, to the self with a capital S, your divine nature. And I'd like you to read this. Each week I read one, and this week I'm going to read the one about love. It says, I'm divinely guided in all I think, say, and do. Spirit expresses through me as love. This divine love radiates out and like a magnet draws to me whatever people and circumstances necessary for my peace of mind, greatest self-expression, nourishing relationships, and prosperity in every phase of my life. And so it is. And so I wrote these for you to give you some spiritual food and to remind you to watch Spirituality Rocks. So you can send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Post Office Box 472 in Woodbury, New York. And also we have this CD, Tunes for Transformation. All you need to do is let us know you'd like to receive this, and we'll be happy to send this off to you. It is just for a donation of $10 to Guiding Light Foundation. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit. tell your friends about spiritualityrockstv.com. Okay, in the studio I have with me my friend and student of truth, Joyce Heist. Joyce is a licensed practitioner with the Centers for Spiritual Living, and she's studying to be a minister with them. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And I am so excited about our guest.
Yes.
Our guest was with us previously on Spirituality Rocks, and we talked about her documentary called Transforming Loss. And our guest is Judith Burdick. I want to make sure I say that right, Joyce. If I get it wrong, elbow me, okay? It's Judith Burdick. She's joining us via Skype from Detroit. Welcome to Spirituality Rocks, Judith Burdick.
Hi,
Thank you,
Judith.
Janine. I'm happy to be here.
Just thrilled to have you. We are looking today at a deeper look at transforming loss. We watched your documentary again today, and it is spectacular.
Thank you.
It is just so great. I love that you had the fortitude, the temerity, the stick-to-itiveness to create that documentary. That must have taken so much time, energy, and effort to bring us this. What prompted you to do it?
What prompted me to do it was my own loss. I suffered a tragic loss. My first husband died in a scuba diving accident at the age of 35, leaving me widowed with 2 very small children, and it's going on 23 years now. And my whole process has been about recovering and then giving back. And this is just the most current manifestation of my own transformation, being that I went back to school, I became a grief and loss specialist, working with younger widows and widowers, and then I thought, well, there's got to be something that really teaches people and shows people in a meaningful way how to not just survive their losses, but to grow as a result of them. So my thought was first a book, and then I thought, no, there are a lot of books out there. What is going to make the most impact? And then I thought a documentary, and it truly has been quite impactful and also very hopeful and helpful, and I'm truly grateful for that. So there you have the backstory.
Yeah, it is. It's just amazing. And Joyce and I watched it again today. And what was your take on it, Joyce?
Oh, that there's so much hope and growth as a result of living through a loss. But what I'm wondering is, how did you get the people to open up so openly, and where did you find these people?
Well, the one thing that really helps me, in terms of my ability to connect is that I'm a therapist. So I can wear my therapist's hat, and I did, and it was very helpful in getting people to feel safe and comfortable. But even beyond that, the fact that I'm a survivor and a thriver was really the thing that gave them just some comfort, knowing that I understood exactly what they were going through and I could connect and relate. So
Right.
they felt safe. And then as far as finding the participants in the film, some were former patients, others were people that I knew through networking in my field and in my community.
Right. And so let's talk a little bit about the film, and that was that people told their stories, and there was a group of people, and when you first hear the stories, I mean, it's mind-boggling. When you hear what these people, I don't remember their names exactly. I know Joyce, was it Gary?
Gary
Was the gentleman who lost his wife and 2 children. I mean, just
Yes.
boom, one day, boom. And then there was another lady who lost her son, her little boy, Miles. And then there
Yes.
was someone else whose husband committed suicide.
That's
There was
correct.
someone else who lost a 4-month-old baby. For 4 months, they and their other 2 little boys nurtured this little baby, and the baby passed on. And then there was
this woman and husband lost a bipolar son who
Right.
Yes.
was a teenager.
Who committed suicide,
committed
yes.
suicide. So what you did with the film is you really offered a broad spectrum. So I believe in this idea that you said connection, that you created a safe space for people to tell their story because you could connect because you too had your own story of loss. Well, what you did, what I thought was so spectacular, it's so broad spectrum that there's something that everybody could identify with.
Everybody, anybody watching this film, and not just people who have suffered a tragic loss, even though these 6 stories really look at tragic, untimely loss through death, but anybody who has experienced the loss of a loved one, and that's most of us, and if not now, they will at some point, but most of us have experienced the loss of somebody close to us or knows of somebody who has died, if they're younger, can relate. And I wanted it to be super relatable for that reason.
Yeah. And I so appreciate that because, as we mentioned last time you were on the show, we don't talk about loss in our society. We haven't been trained to deal with loss. And people just suffer. I mean, people go into depression and one of the things that Gary brought up, he's the gentleman who lost his wife and his 2 kids. He brought up that people said, well, wait, I don't even know what to say. They don't know what to do. And people, we feel we have to do something, And he said something so beautiful, and he said, you don't have to do anything, just be.
Yes. And then me watching you being is all that's needed. And it's really about bearing witness. And I find that as a therapist, what's really most helpful for people is that you just sit with them and you bring your presence to the room or to the experience. And that is what actually heals, is that presence. And you talk about the divine, you talk about the authentic self, and that is truly all you have to be, is just be your authentic self with people who are suffering loss. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to try to fix it. In fact, that's really uncomfortable. But like Gary said, be, and the experience or the expression of you being is what's needed most, needed and wanted most.
Right, just exactly. I understand that. I went through a loss recently, and that was important to me. And also was kind of important when someone would bring over something to eat and then be with me. Because frankly, I couldn't eat. I didn't feel like cooking.
No.
I wasn't shopping. I didn't even feel like eating. But, someone brought a little something, I could get like 1 or 2 bites of food down my throat. But just to be with me, and I could just feel the energy of love. I think that was, yeah. So let's look at the book. I'm so pleased with this book, and I'm so glad to have received it and had the opportunity to go through it. It is the companion guide and workbook. Joyce had a chance to look at it as well today. You know what I really liked it is that it walked me through a process of looking at my loss and how to deal with it. I personally think that a few months ago when my father passed, that I was going through acute grief. I mean, it was acute.
Yes.
I've had other loss. When my mother passed, it was combined with relief that she passed because she was not in a good place physically, with sadness. But it wasn't as acute as this was. And because of the self-talk, I think it was really the self-talk. Because I felt like I lost my biggest cheerleader. I lost my, who's going to be my cheerleader now? And all that. And so what I did is when I looked at the book, you had us look at first where, you called it the grief continuum, and you said, where are you in the process of loss? And so tell us more about, you called it acute loss, acceptance, and embracing life. And I love that you simplified it because, we've read other things and it can be very complicated. This was really, really sweet the way you did it. Talk to us about the acute loss first.
The acute loss is generally the beginning. It's the first stage, and most of us go through a period where it's hard to believe that it's real. And there are several features that define that initial stage. And like you mentioned, it's hard to eat. Sometimes people overeat. It's hard to sleep. Sometimes you can't get enough sleep. It depends on the nature of the loss, though, and you also touched on that. When there's a sudden loss, there's a period that's even more amplified in the acute stage, which is a stage of numbness where you're really like dissociated from yourself. So it's your brain's natural way, and it's involuntary, of protecting you from the reality. Like, I'll speak on behalf of myself. My husband died in a scuba diving accident. 1 minute he was there, the next minute he was gone, and that was that. And it took me 4 to 6 months to emerge from that, because I was really not fully grounded in my physical body. And it's a very uncomfortable feeling. But even if there isn't like a tragedy, you can feel disassociated physically as well. And so it's a feeling of numbness. It's a feeling that it's surreal, like the person is just going to come back, like this can't be real. And, you know, you go through sort of that self-talk or trying to figure out what you could have done, you know, to have prevented.
Right.
So, you know, all sorts of very irrational thoughts come up during that phase, but it's a very, very painful time, and it takes a long time to get through the whole thing, but that's the worst of it.
Right.
Trying to figure out where you are,
right,
you know, in the midst of it.
And then also, I mean, there's the crying, you know, the you'll just crying.
Extreme
and crying.
emotion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sweeps of emotion, and your brain gets foggy. The capacity to think clearly is diminished, and there's so many things like you can't concentrate well, and you sort of feel like you just feel disconnected to yourself. So that is what the acute stage is, and some people are in acute loss for an extended period.
Yes, I mean, when it's sudden and unexpected, that is amplified 20 times.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, you know what? I think since we're just finished with this acute stage, probably it's good time for a commercial break. So it's not going to be a long commercial break, so don't go far. We're going to learn more about transforming loss with Judith Burdick's companion guide to her documentary, Transforming Loss. So stay tuned for more of Spirituality Rocks.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully, joyfully, I am divine.
Hi, my name is Dr. Tom Dow. We have a multidiscipline practice in Melville and Ronkonkoma, New York, and we treat patients with many, many different conditions, from newborns through geriatric patients with numerous different techniques. There's a technique and a type of treatment for every class of patient. We have them all here. Here's my son Thomas, also a doctor of chiropractic, working on one of our patients' cervical spine. This patient has had chronic neck pain for many, many, many years, has been to a multitude of different practitioners with little or no response. And with our specialized techniques, she has improved tremendously and continues to improve on a daily basis. We have two practices, one in Melville and one in Ronkonkoma, New York. We are a multidiscipline chiropractic office. What that means is we have chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, psychologists, all working as a team and a network of outside professionals such as orthopedists and neurologists that we work hand in hand with to help determine what your injuries are and the best way to treat your injuries. I have the great pleasure of having my son in practice with me. We work hand in hand, father and son, to give our patients the best care possible, and a staff which is loving, caring, and you'll never have to wait at all in our office for service. Many times patients come into our office and they have what's called a soft tissue injury. Soft tissue injuries are like scars inside your body. If you've ever been cut on the outside of your body, you get a scar. The same thing happens inside of your body to your muscles and ligaments. So our job is to determine where those are, stretch the muscles, adjust the vertebra back into their correct position, and then refortify the normal structure with exercise. That's what we do best, and I hope someday you'll come see us at one of our 2 offices. Thank you.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I'm your host, the Reverend Dr. Janine H. Burns, and I am very excited about today's show because we're talking about transforming loss. And that's not something that people freely talk about. Of course, in the studio, we have Joyce Heiss, who is studying ministerial studies with Center for Spiritual Living. And on Skype, we have one of my favorite guests, with is Judith Burdick, and who wrote this companion guide to her astoundingly fantastic documentary called Transforming Loss. And what's so exciting is that on July 2nd at the Quad Cinema in Greenwich Village in Manhattan, at the Manhattan Film Festival, it's going to be the release of it, and the editorial release, if you will. So congratulations on that, Judith. That must be so exciting.
So exciting. I'm really thrilled, and I hope that people in the area will come out. You can actually go onto my website or go onto the Facebook page for Transforming Loss, a documentary, and find the link to purchasing tickets because they're going really fast. It's coming up soon.
I'm not surprised. That's great.
A lot of people relate to this.
Yeah, they do. So
yeah, everybody can.
Everybody, well, one time or another, everybody's going to experience some kind of loss, right?
Right.
No doubt.
Well, just before our commercial break, we were talking about the grief continuum. The first one is acute loss, and we'd like to briefly look at the second one, acceptance, and the third one, embracing life. So acceptance, and that's where you process the pain. So speak to us about that, please.
The acceptance phase, and let me just, before I even go into that, just state how it's not a linear process.
Yes.
The healing process is very cyclical. So you can be working on issues in the acute stage of loss as you're moving into the acceptance stage, which is the second stage. And that's a time when you actually go within, you begin to process the pain, the shock has worn off. You're really beginning to face the reality and accept the fact that your loved one will not be coming back. Mm-hmm. But that takes longer than anyone imagines it should. I'm not talking about 10 years, but it takes a good amount of time to be ready to do that. And you can't possibly absorb the reality of that all at once in the beginning. It takes time. So it's accepting the fact that your loved one is dead, and then also beginning to redefine who you are in relation to that loss. Because, your identity, for example, as a married person, as a spouse, you're no longer married. You may feel married, and you may be married in your heart, but you're single. And what does that look like? How is that going to impact your identity? Especially if it's you've been married for 50 years. That's a really challenging phase. So I want to say that the acceptance phase is something that, takes a while and is not a linear step.
Yeah,
but it's a processing and it's an acceptance as a result of it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I know when I've been going through loss, sometimes it goes up and down, and so that's
Absolutely.
a great point. Yeah, and the third step in the continuum that you spoke of is embracing life and transformation and finding meaning. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Now that's an interesting phase. A lot of people can embrace life again, but not everybody that embraces life again finds meaning and transform their lives. Not everybody does that, because to me, that's the difference between somebody who survives and survives quite well and intact versus somebody who actually thrives and grows as a result of that loss. So I wanted to make that distinction, number one. And number two, I really believe that people have to understand that it's a choice, and that if they choose to, sort of change their perspective and see that there is that possibility and what that can look like, and that's what this film really reinforces, then they can do it too, and that it is a choice. So I want to really reinforce that thought as well.
Fantastic, good. In the book, Joyce, I know you had a question. What was your question?
Yes, my question was, what was it in these people who made the positive choices to go on with their life and do something meaningful?
That's a really good question. It's called resilience. And we all have resilience to a degree. Some of us come in more resilient than others. There are a variety of factors that contribute to what makes a person resilient. Some of them are genetic, and some of them are environmental. But we all have the ability to cultivate and develop resilience in ourselves. And we're really not put to the test until we're actually put to the test, till we're in a situation where we're confronted with a terrific or a loss of some sort. It doesn't even have to be a death, but loss creates an opportunity for us to see, how strong we can be.
And that's
so
such
that, to me, is that's it.
Yeah, that's such a positive way of dealing with it. And from seeing the film, it seemed that these people either had support or they had it within themselves to change their perspective and do things differently so that they could start living again.
Absolutely. You have to believe. You have to have some kind of inner strength. One thing that you guys are totally going to totally understand is faith. Mm-hmm. And that comes through in each story in a different sort of way. It doesn't have to look identical to the next person's experience of faith, but faith in something greater. Faith in the goodness of who and what we can be. Faith in the divine. It's different for everybody, but faith in something that can take us out of our feeling of victimization and put us into a broader sort of picture of what life can look like, or what life really is. It's not this, we're not just going through or stumbling through life without, this amazing force that exists within and around us. So I, felt very strongly, for me, that's the truth. And the people that were resilient and that made it into this film also have that faith. So that's significant.
Yes, yes. I really appreciated in the book, you had us do a lot of exercises, which was contemplation. and to look at things. And one of the things that I thought was the most powerful was getting really clear on what supports me and nourishes me and what depleted and undermined me. And I became
Yes.
very aware of that recently, that I was in a circumstance that was depleting and undermining me. And when I did, I was able to consciously change the circumstance. And then I was also, once I realized what supported me, then I was able to focus on that too. And there, you have so many, you talk about so many things that we can do. What are some of the things that people can look at to support and nourish them? And what are the things that could undermine them?
Well, one of the things that I think the primary message of that chapter, if you will,
Yes.
is that relationships can be the most supporting or the most depleting. And when you are experiencing a loss, it's really an interesting thing that you discover who's really there for you and who isn't. Even if you thought they were, you discover when you're suffering or you're in some very difficult time in your life, who and what nurtures and supports you and who doesn't. And so I'm encouraging you or whomever to look at the activities that you engage in. Do you exercise? Do you eat healthy? Are you engaging in unhealthy behaviors? Like, are you using alcohol to numb? Are you using marijuana to numb? What are the things that you're doing? What can you add to your life that can bring, I don't know, a comfort or bring a clarity, and what do you need to really look at eliminating? And who? The same applies for who. Who is there for you and who can't be? And accepting that, and then making some positive changes. And that's not easy because you're looking at additional losses, but that's part of the collateral damage that we experience.
I know that happened to me when my dad passed. I also lost a friend, and she just sort of disappeared, and I don't know if she could really handle this loss, you know. I think it reawakened in her loss, and so I think it was quite challenging. And then I found a friend who I didn't expect, who was constantly dropping off food on the patio, sending me a text message or calling me, and I was so astonished at who showed up. And that's when I really got clear how people, it really brings up their loss, and people have a hard time. Yeah, people have a hard time managing. There's a section in the book, chapter 3, about self-talk. And I was so excited when I read this because, you know, this is spiritual. It's not religious, but I would call it spiritual. You make a really nice distinction here between the authentic and compassionate part of ourselves, which what Joyce and I would call our divine nature.
Right.
Right? I love that. And even last week, Dennis Merritt Jones referred to the authentic self as the self within you, your divine nature, and he called the originating self, he called God. And it says here, when we're suffering a loss, there's part of us that believes that we've been victimized by our circumstances. But then you said, but that's only part of the story and revealing part of the self. But you said in order to transcend this limited belief of being victimized, another part of the self must begin to take the reins and usher in a new awareness to the overwhelmed and frightened part of us. Wow. I just thought that was absolutely, I thought that was outstanding. And for someone who's going through grief to be able to really look at that, embrace this, and you really help them walk through the grief with that.
Absolutely. You know, these concepts aren't, a lot of people aren't aware of them who are not seekers or involved in, psychotherapeutic, thinking or learning. But it is a way to begin to differentiate between the voices within ourselves and the parts of us that support us and the parts of ourselves that don't support us. And that as much as we can find that outside of ourselves, we can also find that within. And this is a time of deep reflection when you are going through a loss. It's almost like you're brought to your knees. And this is a terrific opportunity to see the ways that we undermine ourselves. And the ways that we can support ourselves, and that, we're not alone. This is part of our human conditioning.
What I loved about your movie was the way that most of the people, as they progressed, wanted to help other people that had been through the same thing, and they started foundations or, blogs, and it helped them as well as helping other people. And I thought that was such a growth.
Absolutely. I mean, that is such a defining feature among people who transform, that it becomes about helping others at a certain point in time, that it no longer really revolves around ourselves, that there's a burning desire within, like a strong drive to help others. And that is, the definition of finding meaning in loss.
Yes.
Through helping others. And that's what we're doing here. And that's the highest potential of what we can do and become as a result of our life's losses. And there will be those losses. We all know that.
Yeah. And actually, as you know, Joyce, in chapter 5, transformation, finding meaning in loss, was an actual chapter. And what I like about this is in the beginning of each chapter, Judith has a personal reflection where she talks about that. In this chapter, she talks about resilience and how that resilience, we believe in practical spirituality, resilience is your divine nature, that no matter how many times you've been bruised or battered, or the changes, the losses you've gone through life, there's that within you that is seeking greater growth, greater and development, greater expression. Oh my gosh, get me on a roll here. That's what happens when you talk to a minister. And, so there's that cannot be stopped, you know. And the example I always like to use is you look at in the cement, you see a crack in the cement, and there's one little seed that found in the midst of all this cement. You'll see like a dandelion or a weed or a flower grow through that. You cannot stop life. And if you try to stop life, you literally are depressing the spirit. And when you are depressing the spirit, you get depressed, or you actually can get into addictions, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, shopping, etc. And that comes from trying to press down. So you really cannot press down these feelings of loss and these feelings of hurt, because they will ultimately, literally thwart you and Shanghai you. So that's what
Absolutely.
And I'd like you to speak to that, but I just want the people to know that's why I love this book, and why it's been very helpful to me, Judith, just for clarity. I mean, I've had a lot of training myself, as you can imagine, but still in going through loss, this was a step-by-step guide that I've been using now that had me really look at, what do I want for my future? What is my next step? Where do I want to make changes? How do I want to map out my life?
Absolutely. And that's the opportunity afforded through the experience of loss. And also this companion guide really gives people that sort of way to look at how they can actually do it. Because people are like, transform loss. What do you mean transform loss? Like, isn't it enough that I just get through it? Well, yes, that's true. But then there's so much more available to us if we know exactly how to do it. And that's what this guide really shows you, and gives you gives the reader practical ways of addressing what it takes to change your life in a positive way, in spite of, horrible tragedy. Such as Gary, who lost his 2 children and his wife all in an instant.
And how he changed through his going black. He was going to wear black all the time, and then he decided to bring color into his life. And
Yes.
he said, I just had to change, get rid of that old thinking and change to a new one. I'm going to play because that's what my family would want me to do, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to play golf in each one of the states. And
Yeah, he did that. He achieved that goal.
he did.
In all 50 states in the United
All
States.
50
Right.
states.
Yeah.
And now he's working on all the countries
Oh my
in
goodness.
the world. So
Wow.
God bless him, you know.
Exactly.
But we can all do it, and we can map out what it is we want.
Right.
So
We have that opportunity to do that.
yes, we do.
You have a section here where you talk to us about shifting our perspective, and as our host, or excuse me, as our guest early on the phone, she also spoke about that, the gratitude list. So I think that was very exciting that you had that similar idea, because gratitude, Plato said, a grateful mind is a great mind, which eventually attracts great things. And when you're in loss, it's not always easy to look at what you're grateful for. Yeah.
But it's necessary.
Yes.
Because there are things, there's always something we can find to be grateful for. And when you had mentioned earlier about how can we identify, what can we do actually to facilitate gratitude? Well, in this companion guide, I have, the reader make a list. A simple list of 3 to 5 things. We can all find 3 to 5 things that we're grateful for, and that's an action step. And it requires that we take action in order to, create change. And form follows thought. So if we can think very, very positively, then positive things will come.
Exactly. And that's what we teach in Practical Spirituality. And so I would like to thank you so very much, Judith Burdick, for being with us on Spirituality Rocks. Please check out the documentary Transforming Loss. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to Judith's website, transformingloss.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because I've been
Transforming Loss documentary.
Right, I knew I left out the word. Transforminglossdocumentary.com, and then get this companion workbook. This is just spectacular. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool to support you as you move through the process of grief and get yourself back to yourself. So Judith, thank you so much. We bless you. We appreciate you. You're so thrilled that you could be on the show. I so support you and your work, and I just think that you are a magnificent creation of divine light and love, and that your work is spectacular. Thank you for being on Spirituality Rocks.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I'm going to invite the guest, Joyce, to join us next week. Tell your friends, go to spiritualityrockstv.com. That is spiritualityrockstv.com. Next week we have Wah. Wah is amazing. She teaches yoga. She does music. Really, she's just an extremely well-known lady in that field. And we have her book. We're going to feature that. And then also the following week we have Francine Huss. And we're bringing you more and more of the most fantastic names in practical spirituality. So we'll see you next week. We thank you for joining us on, you ready, Joyce?
Yeah.
Spirituality
Rocks.